I was looking at A1, I guess, looking at the first page, I just need an understanding. I know when I look at commercial, when I look at the residential code and all that, why are we dictating as though we're the developers saying that in order for somebody to build on that property a home, it has to be 1,600 square feet minimum number of residential, 1,800 square feet or more on a two-story. I don't understand why we get into that much detail on the size of, because if we end up annexing somebody in and maybe they haven't built on it yet or they're getting ready to build on it, why? I mean, and it's in every section. I get
Sure.
that. That's why I'm just trying. I didn't know.
So, generally, the size. So zoning codes often address this. In agriculture, it doesn't. In the agricultural section, we can remove that. It doesn't make an issue. Where you come into an issue is, honestly, you have a neighborhood of $600,000 homes, or X size homes, 3,000 square foot homes, and someone wants to come in, they buy a lot and they build a 700 square foot home. Neighbors get upset about property values and concerns about that. So oftentimes it has to do with, it's the form, the consistency, and then on a personal level, it often comes down to property value issues.
But isn't that usually addressed by the developer, saying, "I'm going to build this subdivision. We're going to have X amount of lots, and each lot has to have a minimum square footage of a condo, of a house, of whatever."
It can be. Developers often put those things in for the protection of the people, for the protection of the neighborhood.
Or they depend on what
Or
we
sometimes
have.
they don't.
They depend on what we have.
But step back from this. We annex a property, and we give it its initial zoning as A1 because it's agriculture. If that property then sells to a developer who wants to put on it residential, for example, it doesn't. One would expect it would not retain its A1 zoning because it is no longer having an agricultural use. Part of the development process going through city planning would be a rezone, wouldn't it?
Correct. And there could already be a house on the annex property, and two, the nature of it's a larger lot. There's not houses. It's not in a neighborhood. We don't care what size house they build.
But then if the owner, so you bring in Farmer Brown's farm that's a homestead farm, and they decide that they want to build a new residence for Farmer Brown and or Farmer Brown's family. It retains its agriculture in that sense. You're putting a new farm a new house on the homestead, because it's not really being redeveloped. Or do you in that situation, do we then change it to residential? I mean,
no. So, I mean, inherent in agricultural land is an expectation of having a single family home on it. So in the case of, and this is maybe being too nitpicky, so they tear down the homestead house. You can only have one single family house on a parcel. Banks won't loan you money. It's the way that the whole system works. So he tears down his house and then he goes to build a new one. 95% of the time, people want to build a house larger than what our minimum is. So it is a rare exception. We do see the only time this has really come up is we have existing neighborhoods that are zoned R3, and someone wants to put in.
But not our situation here, because this is A1, specifically something that we're going to more than likely annex. We don't see any A1 infill or rezoning on existing property, do we?
Agriculture, no. I mean, that would not be an appropriate rezone to agricultural.
Okay. So if you have a 100-acre farm and on 1/2 acre or 1 acre of it is the homestead, do you think that that 1 acre gets rezoned residential? Or is the whole thing A1?
The whole thing's A1.
And so they tear down the house and put up a new one, it's still A1.
Yeah,
If they want to take the 1 acre next to the existing house and sell it to their son who wants to build a house on it. And I am actually thinking of a specific farm example in the county that I'm describing. I'm trying to describe that. They would form a new parcel for the son's house. It would get a zoning classification of question mark, and then the son would build a house on it.
so if they can create a new parcel, they have to follow the county subdivision regulations, they have to have frontage.
Nope, it's A1, it's now ours.
It's now ours. So when you parcel a property, the zoning does not change.
Okay, so you'd have 2 A1 parcels, and we would allow them to,
They have to meet the standards of the A1.
But they probably
Acreage.
wouldn't if we gave them an acre to build a, if they gave their child an acre, it wouldn't be did we say 5 or 10 acres is what it has to be A1?
We wouldn't give them A1 if they're less than the 5 or 10.
so they get 5 acres. They put a house on 1 acre of it, and they continue to farm the other 4. Then these, I mean, so you're basically describing an example where the setbacks and things still need to be there for that.
Correct.
Because that's the example you would see in an A1, most likely. What they would do is they would parcel out their what they wanted for themselves and sell the rest for development.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, my thought on those standards, if we leave them in, it will not affect anyone. If we remove them, it won't affect anyone.
On what?
The minimum size house.
Okay, because I'm not a farmer.
Sure.
We say accessory structures can be as big as they want, but they can't be more than 18 feet in height. I don't know what 35 feet above grade means, but that, I don't know, can a tractor or a combine fit into an 18-foot height barn? I don't know. Should we be saying that? I don't know.
That's a good question. I would recommend raising the accessory structure height probably to 30 feet.
And then once again, if this goes in, if A1 goes in, and then we have, that will be a dollar, Mr. Hellman. If we have then case after case to BZA looking for relief from accessory structure height or something, then that's an indication that we need to tweak the code.
Sure.
Okay.
And when something's annexed in, they're grandfathered.
Understood. It's a new construction. It's a new construction part of it.
On that same section of agricultural, section B, where we talk about agricultural activity or a farm and agricultural animals. Again, not farmer, but it said shall not include the commercial feeding of garbage to swine and animals. I don't know what the definition of garbage is one, and then agricultural animals. So back to the animal discussion now, even though we're not there, but by us defining it under agricultural animals in this section, is it defining it in general throughout the city? Because chicken, pigs, goats, horses, cattle, and donkeys, I know, are already, I'll use the word domesticated animals in the city limits. They're urban animals in the city limits. So should we have that in there?
So, I mean, A1, you essentially will have unrestricted use of animals.
Except how we feed them, because we can't give them garbage.
And that's also in another part of the code.
Okay, so
So-
we defined garbage. That's what I wanted to make sure of there, because I'm not a farmer. So if that's that, I'm good on agriculture.